The first video in this series brought a lot of comments and some great recommendations, so let's continue looking back at fantasy box office flops that really didn't deserve it. Highlander had everything you'd want from an 80s fantasy action movie. Sword fights, immortals, and a Queen soundtrack. But when it hit theaters, it earned only around $13 million worldwide, less than its production budget. And critics complained that the story was confusing. Still, the film didn't disappear. Its strange mythology, dramatic tone, and over-the-top style slowly built a loyal fan base. Over the years, it turned into a cult franchise with sequels, a TV show, animated projects, books, and comics. And here's a funny detail. Every Highlander movie released in theaters was a box office flop. Even the third film, which did a little better than the others, still wasn't a real hit. The home video sales must have been incredible for the studio to keep investing in the franchise. Right now, a new remake is in development. Henry Cavill is set to play Connor MacLeod, with John Wick director Chad Stahelski behind the camera. Production is expected to start in 2026. And here's another box office flop from 1986. Jim Henson's Labyrinth is now one of the most beloved fantasy films of the 80s, but in the US it made only around $13 million, just over half of its $25 million budget. And even with overseas grosses, it struggled to earn back its costs. The film started as a new collaboration between Henson and illustrator Brian Froud, who came up with the idea of goblins and a baby at the center of the story. The script went through endless rewrites, more than 20 drafts, with everyone from children's author Dennis Lee to Monty Python's Terry Jones taking a shot at it. Even George Lucas stepped in as executive producer and changed parts of the story. The plot revolves around Sarah, played by Jennifer Connelly, who is upset about being forced to babysit her baby brother. When she wishes the goblins would take him away, her wish suddenly comes true. The Goblin King, played by David Bowie, kidnaps the child and gives Sarah 13 hours to solve the labyrinth before her brother is turned into a goblin. When the movie hit theaters, audiences didn't know what to make of it. Reviews were mixed, the box office was disappointing, and this ended up being Henson's final feature as a director. But home video changed everything. And even now, almost 40 years later, Labyrinth still looks amazing. That handmade, practical look is a huge part of why it's aged so well. It's one of those movies where you keep thinking, how did they even do that? The sheer ambition behind the adventures of Baron Munchausen is impossible to miss. The sets, costumes, makeup, and special effects are on another level, and the movie even earned Oscar nominations in all those categories. Terry Gilliam fills the story with one striking visual after another. The plot can wander, but as a big, imaginative fantasy spectacle, it's great fun to watch. But despite all that, it was a major box office flop, earning only about $8 million on a budget of roughly $46 million. Gilliam had already clashed with studios on Brazil, and this project wasn't any easier. The production on Munchausen ran into constant problems. The budget climbed higher than expected. Sections of the script were cut to save money, and the shoot dragged on with delays and legal issues. And when the movie was finally finished, Columbia Pictures went through a leadership change, so the film was barely promoted. With all that working against it, the release never had a real chance. In City of Ember, humanity has survived a disaster by moving underground for 200 years. The plan was simple. When it was safe to return to the surface, a special box would unlock with instructions. But the box is forgotten, the city is failing, and the lights are starting to die. Two teenagers, Lena and Dune, stumble across the damaged instructions and try to find Ember's hidden exit before the power runs out for good. It's a solid setup, and the world building is genuinely interesting. But the movie never got a real chance. Walden Media financed the film and had big franchise ambitions. But just before release, Fox absorbed Walden's marketing team, laid off staff, and the movie was basically dropped into theaters with very little promotion. It opened outside the top 10 and finished with only about $18 million worldwide on a reported $55 million budget. Everything about 47 Ronin made it seem like a guaranteed blockbuster. Big stars, big visuals, and an even bigger budget. In reality, it became one of Universal's most expensive flops. The production ran into delay after delay. The studio ordered big reshoots, and a late push to convert the whole thing to 3D sent the budget to around $175 million. First-time director Carl Rinch was eventually removed from the edit, and the movie was reworked by multiple editors. When it finally hit screens, critics absolutely tore it apart. Reviews called it messy, uneven, and tonally confused. And yes, the film isn't perfect, but it does have a distinct look and a strange, ambitious fantasy vibe that makes it far more interesting than its reputation suggests. The box office didn't help its case. Worldwide, it made around $152 million, nowhere near enough to cover its enormous production and marketing costs. In the end, 47 Ronin became one of the biggest write-downs in Universal's history. Jack the Giant Slayer is another example of a movie where everything went wrong long before it hit theaters. It's a fantasy adventure about a young farmer who opens a path to the land of giants, sending a beanstalk into the sky and pulling a princess into their world. The production ran into one problem after another: visual effects troubles, delays, and a growing budget that eventually shot past $195 million. Then the release was moved into a tough spot, just 1 week before Oz the Great and Powerful, which went after the same audience. Reviews were mixed, and although Jack the Giant Slayer opened at number 1, it dropped almost 64% the following weekend. Worldwide, it made about $198 million, nowhere near enough to cover both the enormous budget and marketing costs. And yet, for all its issues, the movie is actually really entertaining. A big, colorful fantasy adventure that deserved a better shot than it ever got. And here's the last movie on today's list, and probably the strangest box office story of them all. Warcraft was supposed to launch a massive new fantasy franchise based on Blizzard's hugely popular game. Duncan Jones directed it, the cast was stacked, and Universal clearly expected a hit. Instead, the film completely collapsed in North America, earning only about $47 million. But overseas, and especially in China, it exploded. China alone brought in over $220 million, nearly half of the movie's entire global total. The only problem? Studios keep just a small percentage of Chinese ticket sales, so even with a worldwide gross of around $430 million, Warcraft still didn't turn a real profit. The movie itself has some clear problems. The story doesn't always flow, and the pacing is uneven. But it's not without strengths. The world building is ambitious, the visual effects are genuinely impressive, and if you're into big fantasy, there's plenty to enjoy here. Just don't expect the beginning of a cinematic universe.